On one day, I went out, I released the two falcons, they flew as a couple, and the female, that was experienced falcon, the master falcon, hunt a dog, and the pills was coming down and joining to the kill. And all of a sudden, he got scared and flew away. And fortunately, I had a friend coming with me, and he had a lure by himself. So he went looking for the male, and I was going to assist the female. I went running to join her, and all of a sudden I get sunk in the mud.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and it is now the second episode of our Part 2 series featuring falconers from Mexico. And, of course, I have to give a quick shout-out and a thank you to the North American Falconers Association and the Falconry Fund for their small grants program that help make projects like this possible. If you want more information on how to support, join, or donate to either of these fine entities, just go to n-a-f-a.com for the North American Falconers Association, and also falconryfund.org. And before I recorded this episode with Raul, I was already somewhat familiar with him because of one of the virtual presentations that he gave about his massive falconry library that he's put together over many years. But like many things, it was one thing to be able to actually see it virtually versus being able to see it in person. It's definitely a lot more impressive actually being in his library and being able to see this massive collection of falconry information all in one place. It was kind of overwhelming. I was very happy to be able to go over to his house and check that out, and also get some of his recollections, stories, and experiences about his personal falconry, as well as trying to put together some of the rules and regulations for Mexico's government and things of that nature too. But anyway, you'll hear all about that here in this episode, and I will go ahead and turn things over to that conversation that I had with Raul. So here we go. What were you saying just a little bit ago about what you do for a living versus what you do
I'm
for
Raul
your hobby?
Ducoing Arjona. I've been a falconer for all my life. I started at the early age of 8-9 years. And so I have been with a falcon on my fist ever since. So I don't recall one single day without having a falconry or thinking about falconry on my hand or a hunting bird on my hand. My work is very different from my hobby. I tried to make a living out of falconry in Mexico, and that, of course, didn't work. So I became a sales professional, and I'm a general manager for a transnational company focused on rust preventive in automotive and petrochem industry.
So basically, you stay busy.
I'm a road warrior. I had to travel all the time, and when I come for the weekend home, I do falconry. So it's never ending.
I understand. Yeah, it's always a constant work in progress and just a never-ending vicious cycle, so to speak.
And trying to keep up with falconry in weekends is quite a task, but I have managed to do that in the last 30 plus years. So
I'm glad that I got a chance to, come up and visit here, and I appreciate you taking the time to do it. And yeah, I mean, I can't even wrap my head around all of this stuff that you've shown me.
Well, you're more than welcome. And let me tell you a little bit more about this. When I first started in a country that doesn't have any falconry story, it was like impossible to get a falconry book at that early time. So I'm talking about the end of the 70s, beginning of the 80s. So the only book available were copies of Felix Rodriguez de la Fuente, The Art of Falconry. And there wasn't a book that was available for us to buy. So if you find a colleague that had copies of the book, it was like a treasure. So we absorb all those information, and with that scarce information, we start training our birds. So this look or this search for gathering information became an obsession for me, and I strive and look for ways to obtaining books from other countries, since you can only get books at that time from the U.S. And well, eventually it became such an obsession. Nowadays, I'm one of the sick or more sick guys or big weirdos. I think this collection is among the 20 most important, at least on America, and it's important worldwide, anyways. And I have a difference from other book collectors because I'm focused on all kind of falconry history. That means that I have interest and books from different countries and different language. We're talking about 20, 21, 22 different countries, different languages.
Yeah,
It is.
no, that's insane. And no, I really admire people like you who have taken such well, I guess you could call it a morbid obsession with doing that, because without people like you and the folks at the archives and the people around the world that are really just intrigued and passionate about preserving and documenting our history in this sport, it's going to be hard to continue to pass it along. And it goes without saying, I mean, it eventually all records are gonna go away.
That's exactly the idea. To be fair, when we finish a season, when we put our birds to molt, there is a lot of extra time, and for we the book collectors, the hunt goes on because we switch the quarry on the field for hunting those elusive books out there. So it's the passions continue as well, and the idea is precisely as you say, to preserve history and preserve the culture. We see ourselves not as the owner of the books, because the books are going to stay when we die, and someone else is going to have it on the hands. As you can see here, I have some books from 2 centuries ago, and when you got those books, you open and you see the notes and you see the signatures. You can only think about other lives, how it went, and what's the legacy out there. So yes, we the book collectors want to have a legacy by being the ones, remember, to be the preservators of the culture.
Yeah, and I mean that's our hope anyway. I mean, we our hope would be that these don't eventually end up somewhere that it's just going to get either tossed in the trash or whatever. I mean, I understand, and I feel the same way whenever I have something vintage, in my hands also that I'm looking at, and I've had plenty of other hobbies ranging from vintage comic book collecting to vintage toys and other nerdy stuff like that as well. And not only does it remind you of your own history or your own past or whatever, it also makes you think and appreciate the stuff that came before you, and just it's like you're holding, even though it can be viewed as mundane by some people, regardless, you're still holding a piece of history. And I mean, and there's something to be said for that, because a lot of these books, I mean, it's not like there's a lot of them laying around anymore.
Many few people know how many falconry books are really out there, and let me put it this way: the people that read one book lives one life. The people that read many books lives many lives. When you open a falconry book and you actually read it, you transport yourself to that particular scene, and you hunt along with the narrator. and go and place yourself on that particular hunting. And that's an excellent way of learning from an art that is so old. There is few things to be added. So people think that now with the new technologies, with the use of the drones and the GPS, is easier to make falconry, and that's wrong, because when you are flying a bird that is alive, many things can happen, as we all know, and turns out that the old teachings can help you to recover a bird easier than using a GPS.
Sometimes it's easier to look for the natural signs than it is to pick up your phone and hope
Battery
that
doesn't die.
your GPS signal is triangulating at the end, and all those tools are amazing, and I'm really happy that we have them, and you can't convince me that if some of these old kings and emperors, and you can't convince me that if they saw a current GPS system or something that they wouldn't want to probably use it as well.
That, as in everything in falconry, you cannot go to either of the extremes. You need to do a balance. And when you have a good balance and a good understanding, then you can do things the best way, or I will say right. I mean, you have to be objective and don't strive on putting all your odds on one of the extremes. So the more you learn, the more you understand, the more prepared you are to go outfield. There is people that say, oh, if I go hunting all the time, I'm going to learn everything. That's not necessarily the case. You need to do a balance. There is benefits on learning from other people, and there is benefits from putting those learnings on your training out there. So, yeah.
Sure. Well, let's go back to what you were kind of talking about or briefly touched on just a few minutes ago, in that I know you were showing me your list or your compendium, so to speak, of all of your logged books that you're aware of or have. Out of curiosity, I mean, you made the comment that most people don't realize just how many falconry books are out there, and approximately how many, by your recollection and your record keeping, are out there.
Okay, that's a very good question, and there is no way to have an exact answer. But let me try to put an educate answer.
Mm-hmm.
I will, for example, my collection goes around 1,000 falconry books, and I'm one of the 20 most important particular collectors. But if you see someone like the Archives of British Falconry or even the Archives of Falconry at Boise, those guys have like 5,000 to 6,000 books over there, and the guys have almost all the available falconry books out there. So that can give you an idea. I think the existence will be around 8 to 10,000 books. And of course, then you have to depurate, because there are some books that only talks a little bit about falconry, and there are some very complete compendiums that are a must-have.
Sure. Granted, yeah, I mean, we can only ever approximate, because there's probably, I don't even know how many books or writings that probably have just gotten lost in time and never were published or never, but
there was the most famous falconry book collector was a German guy, and this guy had the biggest hunting book collections worldwide, and it includes not only falconry but all kind of hunting. And it was the Tiliana library, Tiliana, and all his books had a book plate. So these compendiums were so rare that they were sold on when he died. These compendiums were sold on auctions on Shottery. But let me give you the story of this guy. He was a survivor of the Second World War, And when the Germans arrived, they took his home and burned out his library, stole all his art, stole all his books from his family. And this guy has to start all over again, put again a company. He rise up from scratch from the very beginning and create another emporium and remake his library. And this is the library that survived and was sold on Shottesby. So with this being said, on that particular time, a lot of amazing hunting books were burned or lost over time. Same thing happens with the Inquisition. So we talk about, we are all familiar with Frederick II, but there is some lost books that we only know the name or the title, but there is nowhere to be found because they were burned on piles. So yeah, humans are stupid. Real humans have some grade of weirdness.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, it makes you sick to think of all that knowledge and stuff that's been lost over the centuries potentially. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I know it's something even someone as obsessed and motivated as yourself, it's never going to be possible to probably have every single writing.
No
you
way.
know, it's impossible.
It is impossible for me. What I do with my books, I read them, and I'm a consultant for many of my friends, falconers, when they have a doubt or they have a discussion of this particular topic or this particular author. They call me and say, "Hey, Raul, can you please give us some feedback?" And I'm very pleased to provide the actual copies or the actual pages of the books and give some light here. So that's the focus or the purpose for this falconry library. Eventually, I don't know what's going to happen when I die. I think most of the books will go to the archives.
Well, it's fine. I've got really the perfect solution for you, though. I'll give you my address and my personal information after we're done here, and you can just write that in the will and just leave them all to me, and I'll make sure that they're properly taken care of for you.
Sounds cool.
No, it's fantastic, though, and like I said, it's very admirable what you've been able to put together over all these years, and I know you've been asked this, I'm sure, a million times also, and probably have already said it on record somewhere, but out of curiosity, what is your most valuable or oldest book, and then what is your personal favorite?
That's a very tough question. If I had to pick one book or all of them, I will take Frederick II because that's the most complete compendium and the most. It's still up to date at these years. Mm-hmm. It has overpassed the centuries and is still being recognized as the maximum ornithology book produced. However, if you ask me who's my favorite authors, I can tell you a lot of different authors. I liked, not all falconers have the same methods or training. So there is different authors for different ways of training. Mm-hmm. For me, Ronald Stevens is a must.
Technically speaking, what your favorite versus what the most practical is or most collectible, I mean, won't always be the same things necessarily.
That's correct, and like in falconry, in order to be successful, you need to know what you want to hunt, and then you choose the raptor. With books, it's exactly the same. What's the kind of bird or the kind of quarry that you are going to hunt, and then I can tell you which book and which author to look for.
I'm always curious to find what people's personal opinions are, you know, as far as their favorite book that they felt like they got the most knowledge from versus, you know, what might be more technically, you know, collectible or the highest, you know, collectible book that they have. So,
well, for me, the Ronald Stevens again, I really like the way he looked falconry and how he ended. And the fact that he flew his falcons free and kept them free at the end of his day. He lived on a cabin on coastal shore, and he never kept his falcons tied anymore because he trained them and let him fly free. When he went out of his house, just called them, and they came back to him. They were ageless birds. So he ended up without using a leash or a lure or nothing. And that's the perfect scenario or like a dream for a long winger.
Well, sure, because they're going to stay totally fit and muscled, and they're going to be probably your best flying bird because they're always flying free and don't, they're not going to lose any of that. And yeah, I can only imagine.
For me, I think that's the closest thing to falconry perfection.
Yeah, yeah. And as far as the most like highly collectible book, or like the most like you don't have to say a dollar amount or anything, but the most like what you can consider to have the most collectible book that you have.
Oof, that's a tough one. There is too many on the old works, of course, that are all out there. For example, Latham, a book. It's like the Holy Grail. They are very tough to find. First, especially a first or second edition. Those are the most costly, but not only costly. They're very hard to find or strange.
Yeah, I know that there's some of these books that will go for technically what would more or less convert to tens of thousands of dollars for us in the U.S. I mean,
Easily.
But well, no, that's great. I mean, I'm sure we could talk forever about this particular subject, but let's just go ahead and talk about, what originally sparked your interest in falconry itself then. And I know this all spawned from that, but yeah, how did you get into all this?
Well, when I was a kid, I loved to have small animals like any other, and around my home, and I used to have mice and all kind of these frogs and small animals. And one day I came back with a friend, and he had a kestrel. It was an ageless kestrel, and he doesn't even know nothing about the bird. So he released the kestrel on his room, and it was a female set on the corner of a fish tank and start fishing. And I was like, wow, I was impressed. Like, it's a raptor. I need to know more about that. So I ended up trading my highly costly electronic games at that time, the football games, and came back home with a kestrel. My mom was terrorized, and she said, oh, first you got robbed. And second, this bird is going to eat your eyes. So Grandpa came by to help, and he said, oh, forget about this. This guy is going to keep the bird for a couple of months. It's going to die, and that's it. And that particular bird lived for 8 years. Then I went to my grandfather's library and trying to find out what it was, and I got a very old encyclopedia. And then I find out it was a kestrel, and I was looking at an European encyclopedia, so everything was twisted. But I found the word falconry over there, and I see that it can actually be trained, and that was like that hit me. Was like, wow, I need to know more about that, and that's where the hunting for falconry books started.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I'm sure that the bird living for 8 years was much to your mom's chagrin, so to speak. She probably wasn't very happy about that. But
there was one Christmas day that we live on a big house. My grandfather lived on a big house, and he put a huge Christmas tree. And on one Christmas, he asked me to release my couple of kestrels on the lobby, and they were sitting or perching on the Christmas tree. Then they fly all over screaming and get back to the tree, and it was awesome.
Yeah, I'm sure they were probably crapping all over the place and stuff too. And
they were putting the snow on all the decorations. Extra snow.
Yeah, extra snow. That's awesome. No, I'm sure that probably made your family just thrilled. But yeah. So I mean, after the kestrels, what evolved from that? What type of birds did you get after that and all that?
Well, I went to a Harris Hawk, And of course, that lasted forever. Like Harris hawks are all-terrain birds, and yeah, he it was a male Harris Aegis that stayed for me also for a long time, and well, he was the one that teach me falconry. I don't train the birds. The birds train me. I I have a different way to approach the birds. I'm not. I don't treat them as my pets. I'm not. They are not. They are not captive. I am the captive one. So I am the one that has to provide, to look, and to understand the needs. So my goal is to provide them with everything they need to be healthy, to be happy, and to be able to perform. So that's the way I approach falconry.
Yeah, it's a different approach for sure.
As like Ed Pitcher said, feed them up. Most people drop the weights down, and that's not always the solution. Feed them up, fuel them.
Yeah.
Falconry is not about hunger; it's about trust.
Yeah.
So the line is very, very, very thin. If you play games with your bird, if you rob food from them, if you mistreat them, they just fly away.
Yeah, they don't have to stick around. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, there's different ways you can, as you can say, there's lots of ways to skin a cat in that situation.
Exactly.
But, I mean, and what works for one person doesn't always work for another, and all that kind of stuff. But,
And it also depends on the bird you're flying. You cannot do those kind of things with a goshawk or a coops. But well, as a long winger, and that's why I'm looking that way. It's different. The noble and the ignoble birds.
yeah, it's
There is some truth on those terms.
yes, there is, very much so. Well, and then eventually you evolved into just primarily doing or flying long wings. Then after like the Harris Hawk, but how soon after that was that?
A couple of years.
Yeah. And how long have you been flying long wings since then, primarily?
Since then, I never looked back.
Yeah.
I became a specialist on peregrine falcons. First, there were passage. Then we move on to Aegis birds, and that's where I make all my focus on Aegis peregrines. Until now. Now I am working with some year falcons that I import from Portugal, white years, and I'm start flying them on this latitude. So let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Not an easy task.
No. They're not exactly warm weather birds.
Not the perfect scenario,
Yeah.
but that's something I want to try in my lifetime. So
Sure.
why not?
Yeah, why not? I mean, if you got the means and you've got the time and the effort and the energy and the motivation, go forth and prosper. Yeah.
Well, you only live once.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, well, and as far as just different other experiences that you've had, I mean, have you ever had a chance to like go to the States and see birds fly? And
by all means. I have been an AFA member since 1984, and yes, I have been on AFA meets many times. I have been with other college falconries. I have been on the House of Grouse, of course, hunting with deer falcons, with huge, with many friends. I can tell you, been around. Also went to Spain and with some other colleagues and fly some long wings.
Great. Yeah, I mean, so far it's been, like I said, that's one of the reasons I've been happy to be able to do some of these other things, is to get to see how falconers across the world, do things, and what's important to them, and just the differences in how they do things compared to how we do things in the States. And that's something else I wanted to talk to you about, because I know that part of the reason, like with some of your prior involvement with NAFA, and also trying to, kind of change the way kind of things are done in Mexico and stuff like that. I mean, what's some of the things that you've done, in regards to trying to make some of those changes?
Okay, I got a good stories here.
We got time.
Since well, on the 80s, it hit us the prohibition of having passage birds or trap passage bird, and it came from the States because of the peregrine falcon situations. So Mexico was different. We never really had a huge drawback on the peregrines, especially on the tundras. Tundra's population never really dropped. However, we wanted to protect them as well, so we want that all the falconry birds were registered. So we went to the government at that time, it was called SEDUE, and turns out they didn't know anything, and they just want to prohibit everything and block. So I was told by the director to bring my birds to his office, and he was going to check out if I had them on good shape in order to evaluate if I was a candidate to have a permit to keep my birds. And well, that's hit the red alarms because it sounds like I was going to be cheated and I was going to be, they were going to take the birds out of me. So I decided to prepare myself and take pictures of my installations, my equipment. I put together a working plan on how I feed, how I train the falcons, bring some pictures, and I decide to go assist to this meeting with my birds and present them. So when I was getting in, the guardian told me, you are going to lose your birds today, and you are going to be to have a ticket or a. So, well, that was not going to stop me. I went in and had that meeting. The director bring his colleagues or biologists to evaluate. And at the very first, they were a little nasty. So as the meeting went on, they changed. They start hearing me, and they were amazed. So they told me, okay, there is not a permit form for me to give you or grant you. I'm going to allow you to keep the birds, but in exchange, I want to have some support of you because we have some ideas. We want to put together a reglement and the laws, and we need ideas from professionals, and you qualify as that. So I start working with the biologists for a full year on a falconry reglement. I talked to all my falconry colleagues. I wrote letters. At that time, there was no internet, and everything was done by letters. And I wrote to all the important associations worldwide. So I had the copies of all the reglaments and start putting together pieces of what worked and what didn't work in other countries, and put a model of a reglement which I presented back to SEDUE. So they love it. We have some brainstorms. Some things were adapted to that epocha, and it was translated to an official normativity. So everything was moving along, and when it came for the timing for signing the documents, it was turned up to the Congress, and there was two important people that were going to sign the document. And at that particular time, one of them got killed. So everything was stopped. The secretaries that had that begin fighting themselves for power, and everything become a mess.
And when was this?
This was night in the 87, I think.
87?
87.
Approximately. 87.
Approximately. Since then, I have been talking to them, showing them the reglement, giving some ideas, trying to get this ongoing, but it never had the interest. The response back was that there was not enough people to justify to put together a normativity.
So
And now, nowadays, we have the opposite, quite the opposite. The ambientalists and the people that protects animals want to prohibit everything that they don't understand. And of course, falconry has been under attack. So I am one of the guys up front that is defending falconry in Mexico.
So you've basically been trying to do all of this stuff for the past 30 plus years, basically.
That is correct. And that's tough because as many countries, especially Latin countries, it's very hard to put together or gather the people to focus on one goal. So everyone wants to be the commanding voice, mm-hmm. or have the benefits and the merits, and that creates a mess. So every single time that we want to put together and we start working together, one of the guys disrupts everything, and it doesn't go anywhere. Yeah. However, I'm still fighting. Mm-hmm. I'm the voice for NAFA. I'm trying to bring some sense out of this, and I keep informing NAFA on what's the Mexican falconry, what's going on in Mexico, and it works. It works both ways. Mm-hmm. And I do bring news to the Mexican guys and invite them to join NAFA.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's all you can really do is, just keep plugging away and just hope that eventually, that final barrier or whatever it is gets knocked down and you're able to do whatever it is you're trying to do, and until then, I'm sure the last 30 years have been a little frustrating for you, though.
Oh, I can tell you. Yes. There were times that I was putting all my time and all my effort on those, and I learned the hard way that you need to live on other things.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, because, sometimes all of this stuff can be a lot of this stuff can be a very thankless job as well. And, you're not going to get a whole lot of, recognition or thanks for, for all of your efforts. So
you're never going to get the recognition, and the recognition doesn't mean anything. I mean, the recognition will be that the sport prevails. So that's what we're really looking here.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it's not much better thanks you can have to is be able to keep doing what you've been doing for all these years.
What I'm doing now, it's I'm educating the new people. So I'm providing educate training to the new falconry participants, or some veterinarians that want to learn how to manage or take care of raptors. And I'm providing some teachings on that. And that's free of charge. I'm not making money out of this.
Well, and as far as how other people can kind of try and help advocate or help further the cause, so to speak, at least here in Mexico, I mean, what do you recommend that they do then, as far as trying to help get those things done? And help, if other people want to help you accomplish those things, what can they do?
My recommendations for them is try to do the things the right way. Don't teach others with your example. Become a leader. And to become a leader, that doesn't mean that you need to shout or to give rules. That means that you are a person that are good enough to be followed. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So teach with example. Do not do anything wrong to hurt the birds. Don't trap illegal birds. Don't buy illegal birds.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah, just try and be ethical. Essentially,
be ethical as much as possible.
Okay.
And if I can give a recommendation for any falconer, what I have learned outfield or known all these years, it will be that do not assume. When you assume, chances are that you are wrong.
Yeah.
Most of the times when you assume and you think you know things and you know what's going to happen, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And our birds are experts on showing us that.
That they are. That's falconry in general.
That's falconry in general, exactly. So do not assume. Be prepared for the worst. Always look for Murphy's Law and prepare for any scenario.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. And as far as just some of your own personal falconry, though, over the years, this is probably a good time to go ahead and get that, those one or two most memorable stories that you have as far as particular either birds or, hunting experiences or what that you, that are always on your mind.
Well, there's plenty of them, but I think that most of the falconers always talk about the perfect scenario, the perfect day, or exaggerate or show something that was gorgeous. That's not the case for me. I think that you can learn from the tough experience, and those are the ones that you remember the most. So one of the stories that I will write someday about, it's about the use of a master falcon. A master falcon. That's on Spanish falconry. In the old days, they used a trained falcon to teach anellas how to fly and hunt. So that accelerates the process of teaching a bird, and that was used when there was not drones or balloons or any other modern techniques that we use nowadays. So with this being said, I use an old trained falcon to teach an Ellas Peels that I import from Lejeune, from Canada. It was on the 1992. So on one day I went out, I released the two falcons, they flew as a couple, and the female that was experienced falcon, the master falcon, hunt a dog, and the peels was coming down and joining to the kill, and he get scared and flew away. So that was kind of weird. And fortunately, I had a friend coming with me, and he had a lure by himself. So he went looking for the male, and I was going to assist the female. I went running to join her, and all of a sudden I get sunk in the mud. And the mud went all over my head. So I was fortunate enough to grab the side and throw or blew out the mud out of my nose, mouth, and everything. So I couldn't move. It was like
quicksand or something.
Quicksand.
Yeah.
And I stayed there because I was shouting to my friend. My friend was occupied trying to recover the male. He took his time. And all of a sudden, he came by and looking for me, and he found my bird. And then he saw my face going out from the mud. So he was able to pull me out. And I went out without boots, without receiver, without binoculars. Everything gets stuck in the mud. So again, I get on that side, and I just see how the mud eat down the falcon with the kill.
So how scared were you?
Well, I was very scared. I was more scared about losing the bird. So I was when I was on the shore, I was thinking about weird ideas of stripping on myself, tying a rope, and trying to go and rescue the bird. And my friend was going to pull me out. And when I was working out this ridiculous rescue, the bird just got eaten by the mud.
Yeah. Well, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how ate up we are with this sport and these birds, is that we're more worried about that at that given moment than suffocating in a big giant vat of mud.
It does.
Yeah, that pretty much sums up how warped we are, I guess, in some ways. I can't just how ate up with it we can be. But so did you have success then with that technique? I mean, did it
Yes.
work?
It worked, but I had to try it eventually years later.
Mm-hmm.
So it took me another 4 years to make it happen.
Yeah. That's a good concept. And I mean, whenever you talk about it, it's, I mean, honestly, it's not really so different than how parents would teach, young to hunt and everything. So, I mean, that's an interesting concept. I wonder how many people have really done that successfully.
I think very few people, and that's some of the things that you can learn when you read the falconry books. Other cultures, other stories, other techniques.
Mm-hmm.
So, as I told you on the very beginning, do not assume. There is a world of information ready to be read or obtained.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And well, I mean, is there one more, or is there another instance that you have that you can
I can tell you many, but I think
let's go ahead and share one more, and then we should be able to go ahead and probably wrap this up. And
okay,
yeah.
Talking about what we were saying earlier, I went to an AFA meeting, and this was again in the 80s, and telemetry was not available in Mexico at that time. So I went to do some outings with different falconers, and there was this guy, George Richer, I think, that he was like, the star, flying peregrine falcon. So I need to go out with him, of course, and so I did. And it turns out that he lost his peregrine, and he was taking out all his telemetry equipment, and he was very stressed. And I kind of saw the flight outside, and I was driving with him. But I decided to look for the bird the way I do. I used to look for my falcons when I lost them. So I went myself, strive to a hill, and the guy was very angry because I was going to lose his time. So they drove in their trucks and leave me on the field. And they came back 2 hours later and to pick me up, and found me that I took off my shirt and I had his peregrine on my hand, calm. And he was like, "Wow, I'm surprised. How do you get it back?" And I just told him, "Well, where I come from, we don't have telemetry, so I use the old ways."
Yeah.
Triangulation.
It's like, well, you would have figured that out had you actually stuck around and not left me here for 2 hours.
That's correct.
Oh, geez. Well, no, like I said, this has been, I think, a really enlightening conversation in a lot of different ways. I'm glad that we were able to make this work in the short amount of time that I'm able to be here. And yeah, it's always a challenge trying to figure out the logistics and, coordinating everybody's time and when they're free and everything else. So, I mean, I appreciate you doing it on, fairly short notice. And, like I said, thank you so much for sharing, your library and stuff. And, I mean, is there any other last sentiment or any other last thought that you'd like to leave on?
Sure. You are more than welcome to come anytime. There is a lot of things we can talk further on. Mm-hmm. And of course, we have only touched the surface. Mm-hmm. When we talk about books, we can talk hours about stories, time, teachings, lessons. And there is so many things that people doesn't know that exist, that it keeps amazing.
Yeah.
So you're welcome to come any other time, and hope you guys like this talk and learn a little bit more about Mexican falconry.
Yeah. Well, and that's something that one of the goals that, I know I personally have with all of this is just to give people more information on how things work in different parts of the world and just getting other people's, I think everybody around the world has the I don't know, they have earned the right to be able to, share their stories and experiences with everyone. And yeah, and I'm just hoping that we can keep doing it. So like I said, I mean, thanks for being a part of it. And who knows, maybe we can work out a part 2 sometime and just talk, just forever about, for those people that are as sick and twisted as us about just the literary stuff and some of the history. It might be another fascinating thing to do sometime.
Well, be my guest.
All right, sounds good. Thank you again, Raul, and like I said, I appreciate your time.
My pleasure.
All right, thanks.